Brilliance Audio presents Rooster by Sam Sisavath. Performed by Ryan Burke. He was tired and dirty, and he hadn't shaved in over a week. He'd been wearing the same clothes for over 4 days now, and everything was starting to stink from his toes all the way to his unkempt and getting longer hair. Fortunately, he'd been able to pick up a couple of new socks along the way. After all, there were much more important things to scavenge these days than a fresh pair of socks. Unfortunately, he hadn't been so lucky with clothes that fit, or that were an upgrade from the ones he currently had on. All things considered, he was in fine shape. Of course, people had often told Ko that his definition of fine could be a little skewed, but that was probably not the case this time. He was sure of it. Mostly. Things would have been even more fine if he could just ignore the scar along the left side of his face, which was tingling a lot more these days, like some kind of sixth sense was trying to warn him of impending danger, as if he needed Pollard's gift for that. Ko knew full well that he was balancing on a razor's edge, and had been ever since he left Gaby behind in Axton. If he had any doubts, he had woken up this morning to a reminder of his precarious situation. There were 6 of them, all humans. That one threw him for a loop. But then it was day, 30 minutes past sunrise to be exact, and this was the first time he'd seen them out in the open, and this close. They'd been careful the last 2 days, but so had he. They'd been sniffing his trail ever since he shot out of Axton like a bat out of hell. Humans? Definitely humans. He hadn't been sure of their exact number the first day when he noticed the swirl of dust as they raced across the flat Texas land on his heels. They had spread out to cover as much ground as possible, and it was a damn good thing he took great pains to cover his tracks, even before he knew they were out there. He thought he'd lost them a couple of times, but the following day had proven him wrong. They were good. Too good. Or maybe they'd just gotten lucky. That is, if they were even after him in the first place. Maybe it was just a coincidence. They happened to be heading in the same direction as him. Which, of course, would be one hell of a coincidence given that he didn't know where he was going from hour to hour. There were other questions, like who had sent them, if anyone. How many were there? But those could wait. Ko peered out from his hiding place, and, for the first time since they followed him out of Axton, he got his best look at his pursuers yet. The sparkling sunlight gave away that they were humans, and the red facial hair sticking out underneath one of their ballistic helmets confirmed it. They were wearing urban assault gear, vests, boots, and tactical packs. Then there were the weapons. They had slung rifles and gun belts, with the rest of their stuff hanging off the horses tied to one of the crossing signposts. They were flanked by buildings, storefronts, and a lot of abandoned cars, and enough litter in the streets to fill up a dozen or more landfills. He could see them, but was too far back to make out if there were any emblems or markers on their clothing. Ko had a pretty good idea who they were. They'd been on his ass ever since Axton. Ko eased his forefinger off the trigger of the MP5 SD and pulled the weapon back, away from the spreading sunlight. The Heckler & Koch submachine gun was matte black, and would have been difficult to spot all the way down the street, especially with the black tint on the tempered glass window in front of him, but there was no point in risking possible exposure if he didn't have to. After all, despite his best efforts, they had still tracked him into the city. Damn, they're good. Or just really lucky. Either or, pal. From his position inside the building, lying on his stomach and looking through one of the dirt and elements-caked windows on the 5th floor, he was mostly, you hope, invisible to eyes looking from street level. That included the 6 figures about half a mile up the road. They had stopped in the open and exposed themselves as they rested to drink and eat. 2 of them sat on the curb while 2 more stood guard, watching the empty 2-lane downtown roads and scanning the buildings around them. The last 2 stood next to the hood of an abandoned truck, looking over a map. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe they didn't know he was here. Maybe they weren't that good after all. Captain Optimism. K.O. chuckled, imagining the ex-ranger smirking as he thought of that. He wondered what Laura would say. He'd come close to asking Gaby about her, beyond what she had been doing since he left almost 5 years ago. He couldn't care less about all that saving the world stuff. He was dying to know more about Laura.